Hi, this is Bob Fuchs. I'm here with Mark Victory, and special thanks to Linda and Steve Victory for letting us use their video camera. Today we're going to make ASP Sticky Buns. Alright, there's a number of things you're going to need, so I'm going to go through the ingredient list. Number one, dry yeast. You need some lukewarm water. You need boiling water. That's actually boiling water. The lukewarm water I'll get out of the tap. You're going to need sugar, a cup and a half. You're going to need a tablespoon and a half of shortening. You're going to need 4 teaspoons of salt. You're going to need 3 eggs, beaten. Those are eggs. Chicken eggs work best. And then you're going to need 11 to 12 cups of flour. You may need more. That's to make the dough. You're going to do that in the morning. Alright, in the evening you're going to need 3/4 of a cup of butter or margarine for each batch. And there's 4 different batches of sticky buns you're going to be making out of the dough. So that means you're going to need 1, 2, 3, a lot of butter. I'll give you the count later because I don't have it in my head. You're going to need 2 tablespoons of white corn syrup, and then you're going to need 3/4 cup of brown sugar for each pan that you make. 1 batch of dough makes 4 9x13 pans. So you're going to need 4 9x13 pans in the evening. You're also going to need a rolling pin, and in the morning you're going to need a large bowl to make the dough. The other thing I forgot to mention, and because there's some time between the time that you make the dough and you have to make the sticky buns, go out and get some cinnamon if you haven't already done that. It doesn't show up on the ingredient list. You have to read down at the bottom. Alright, we'll get started on making the dough. Alright, we're ready to make the dough. You take your 4 cups of boiling water, put it in your large bowl. Grab your shortening. You need a 1.5 tablespoons of shortening. This is a 1+ tablespoon, and I cheat. I just scoop it out and get close. You put that right in your boiling water. It will melt. You add in to that 4 teaspoons of salt. So it doesn't want to melt. There we go. So we grab our salt. I can burn myself, that's fine. 4 teaspoons. There's 1. Two. If you notice, it doesn't have to be exact. You don't need to use a knife and level it out. You're baking here. Things can be close. Alright. Ow. Keep stirring that in until that yeast melts and the sugar or salt dissolves. And then you also add 1.5 cups of sugar. I'll do that while I'm letting that dissolve. Get my sugar out. 1 cup of sugar. And a 1/2 cup. Helps to have all the different sizes, that way you can get your amounts done quickly. Alright, so there's the 4 ingredients that go into the, 4 things: water, boiling water, your 1.5 tablespoons of shortening, 1.5 cups of sugar, and 4 teaspoons of salt. Stir this all together till the shortening is melted and all of the ingredients are mixed in, and then you set it aside to cool. And we'll be back in just a few minutes. Alright, our water mixture is now cooled. You can see that the shortening is congealed a bit on the top. Then you take your 1/2 cup of lukewarm water and put in 2 tablespoons of yeast. 1, 2. Make sure your yeast is still fresh, because if it's not, that'll have a negative effect on your outcome. You stir the yeast into the lukewarm water, mix it all up, so it becomes where you can't see the yeast. I use just a cup and a fork. It seems to work pretty well. When that's completed, you put that right into your sugar water mixture. Stir that in. Then you add your 3 eggs. 1, 2, 3. You can beat the eggs beforehand if you want, or you can take the approach I do, which is where you just mix them in once you get them in the mixture. Stir that all up best you can, remembering that as you add the flour, it's going to mix up just fine. So now, got all our ingredients in. Now we start adding flour. And as I said, there's going to be 10 to 12 cups of flour. So we've got to add them a little at a time. Alright, always have a towel. I don't. Alright, so you simply start adding the flour. And obviously, since you're adding an amount of between, because it's going to be based on the consistency of the dough, it doesn't have to be exact when you dump them in. I always take it, and after each couple, mix that in, so then that way I'm not winding up where I can't stir it. One thing you'll note is you can use a mixer, stand mixer. Hand mixers usually don't work because once you get past a few cups of flour, it can't handle it, and they bind up and break. And if it's yours, you won't like that. Alright, so we can just keep dumping it in until it starts to solidify, because it will all mix in. Don't worry about what it looks like now. You'll worry about what it looks like when it's done. Alright, so I'll add a few more. Just keep stirring that in. I use a wooden spoon, and I hold it far down on the handle. This is because if you hold it high up on the handle, it will break. And the only reason I know this is, I've done it. Now you'll note that your bowl is not, you don't spray it or anything, it's just a mixing bowl at this point. The goal here is to try, if you're making a nice consistent dough without getting flour all over your kitchen, which everyone will appreciate. I'm just going to dump all this flour in, because that's the end of that. I'll have to open the bag. So let me mix all this in. And you can see it's starting to become a little bit more solid. Still a liquid mixture. And we go from using the wooden spoon to using our hands when it gets a little bit more solid. Don't worry about the lumps right now. You'll work those out as you keep adding flour. Alright, so we got our next bag of flour open. We'll just keep stirring this in. This is the exciting part of the work. Just keep scraping it off the sides, mixing it in. You can see it's starting to become less liquid, more of a solid. As it gets tougher to stir, you can drop down to 1 cup of flour, so in that way you can stir it in a little more easier. I'll be doing that on the next one, I can tell already. You can see you just keep folding the flour in, and the mixture will grab it. There we go. Alright, we're getting to the point where a spoon's not going to be cutting it. Probably get in 1 more cup, and then I'll start using my hands. Remember, wash your hands before you begin this process. Everyone will appreciate that. You can see this is where I start flinging the flour. You just keep mixing the flour in. Put a cup of flour on there. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, put a little more. That'll work. Let you know if I need more. This may be enough. Thank you. And I know right now it's all over my hands, but what you'll find is that when it's ready and the right consistency, it will actually fall right off your hands. And you can see by kneading it in this way, you get rid of those little lumps that were in there earlier, and it becomes a smooth consistency. Alright, we've been mixing for a little while here by hand, and we just put in the last bit of flour, and you can see the consistency's changed. Much more solid. Mark is actually holding the bowl for me because when you really get going, it moves around. You know, and I do this in the bowl so I don't have to clean up afterwards, but if you want to do it on your counter, that's entirely up to you. Because you're kneading the dough, but you're not really trying to make it so that you're overdoing it. But as you can see, it's starting to fall off my hands. It's picking up the flour that's in the bowl. And we're actually going to let it just rise in this bowl when we're done. So the fact that there's a little flour on there doesn't hurt anything, because that will keep it from sticking to the side of the bowl as it rises. And I'll just keep taking this dough right off my hands. Just keep kneading it in. You can see we're just about done. Just keep pressing that in, stretching it out. Can hardly see any flour anymore. So as you can see, there's not much dough left on my hand. It comes off. Just keep kneading a little bit more. I think we're pretty close. What do you think, Sue?
I think it looks good.
Alright, try to smooth it out a little bit. Set it in the bottom of the bowl. Make sure it's not sticking to the bottom of the bowl. And then what we'll do is we'll just let that sit there and rise, and 4 times during the day, when it rises up to twice its size, you literally punch it down, let it sink back in, and then wait for the next time. So you're going to do that 4 times during the day before you cut it into quarters and make your sticky buns tonight. So we'll be back in a while. Our dough's mixed and kneaded, ready to rise. Cover it. It's always a good idea to do that